One of the things that really intrigues me about the League Two promotion race, from a neutral perspective, is I don't think there's a standout complete side. Last season, you had Stockport County, you had Wrexham, and you had Mansfield Town. All three really well balanced sides who you felt like had a bit of everything. I think with this year, there's probably question marks over every potential candidate, as much, and I think there's possibly a greater volume of potential automatic contenders because last season it felt a little bit like a closed shop at times, didn't it? Whereas I think you could go through each of. I mean, I think there's 7 teams that have a good chance of automatic promotion. I think Walsall, Port Vale, Crewe Alexandra, um, AFC Wimbledon, Doncaster Rovers, Chesterfield, and MK Dons would all be the type teams in the mix, and even Notts County, I think, once they get key players back fit. So there's 7 or 8 sides there that are in with a sniff. So really excited to see how things pan out. I think there's a very even gap between some of these sides. You only have to look at the caliber of the clubs and the teams that are sort of even outside the top 7 at the moment to show how competitive it is. So plenty to get stuck into on this League Two podcast. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. You could do us a massive favour before we start by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify, because that really helps us out a lot. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host for the evening, Jack Kershaw of JK Analysis 7 on Twitter/X. Jack, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. I've such an admirer of the content that you produce on lower league football, and especially your tactical insight is just off the scale. So I'm really looking forward to getting your insight on lots of different teams this evening. Before we get into the nitty gritty, I wanted to ask you, in terms of the big picture of the League Two promotion race, would you agree that it's going to be very even and it's not going to be a case of 3 teams dominating, and actually there's 7 or 8 teams that are going to be in the mix going into spring?
Yeah, definitely. Because, like I said in your intro, there's no real team that's dominating the league like there were last season. There's not 3 that at this moment in time you can bang on to be in sort of the top 3 and top 7 because there's 9 points separating first and seventh, but then from first to third there's only 6 points. But then from third to 7 there's 3 points, and so there's some teams that have had fast starts that are now slowed down a bit, but they could still be in the race for playoffs. And it's a very tight league, and it's one where obviously Asport Fleetwood, it's one where you feel anyone could beat anyone, really.
Yeah, certainly is. Those 8 teams are the teams that I would say have a realistic chance of automatic promotion. But as we've seen in previous seasons, Bolton and Ian Everton in 2021, Bristol Rovers under Joey Barton, my favourite manager, in 21-22. There are possibilities for teams that might be right down there in January to just fly up the league. Do you think there's a possibility of that happening this season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw it with Doncaster last season.
Yeah.
They were 20th or something in February, and then a massive uptake in form. And I think everyone thought they could go up to League One actually, and obviously they didn't. But yeah, there are some sides down there. Maybe Colchester, I thought they'd maybe be mid-table. Obviously, they've still got a perfect chance of doing that, and maybe sneaking into the top half because, when everyone's in that starting 11, you feel like they've got a strong starting 11. And with Danny Cowley, you think his first full season, he could try and uplift Colchester. And then, from there, I mean, you've got Fleetwood. I mean, it's not looking too great, but I think we're in sort of the mix between, sort of the Barrows and sort of the Cheltenhams and Salfords team like that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that could maybe creep up, and I don't think the table's settling itself out yet. There's still a lot of rechecking in positions because of how tight the league is, and I think there are some definitely some candidates in maybe lower mid-table that could sneak up into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's still plenty of room for manoeuvre. Not even had half the games yet, so plenty of time for things to change. Delighted to be joined now by Simon from Walsall Fan TV, the joy and the pain. Simon, did I completely bugger that up again?
No, you got that perfect. Yeah, joy and the pain.
Perfect, brilliant. Simon, what do you make of Walsall's promotion chances as we approach the festive period?
I'm becoming more confident by the day.
Right.
The Notts County game, followed by the Port Vale game, were the real big test. And I think the Wimbledon away match was a massive test as well. Mm-hmm. So to come through all of those real big challenges with 9 points out of those 3 is sort of putting a marker down. And then to follow that up against Barrow, which after the Lord Mayor's show kind of thing could have fell apart. But I
didn't realise Ronan Mayor was starting for you guys at the moment. I thought he was out on loan.
He's out on loan. He's had a bit of a knock, so he's missed a couple of games for Tamworth. But he's one of those. I think that was just a joke. You didn't want to go into that.
Yeah.
The thing that will make Walsall fans nervous is the January transfer window, because the last 2 years we've been derailed by firstly Danny Johnson being pulled back by Mansfield, and then Freddie Draper being pulled back by Lincoln.
Will lightning strike thrice even,
or even 3 times, yeah. And if Nathan Lowe got pulled back, I don't think that would be such a heavy hit as the previous 2 had been, but it wouldn't be great, to be honest. But I can't see him bringing him back, taking him back. Emre Tezgel has not been a regular starter, and he's perceived to be the better player. So if they did call him back, he'd probably be on the bench or struggling to make the bench.
Yeah, Simon, it's an interesting point you make. My understanding of Emre Tezgel is he's a slightly different profile of forward to Nathan Lowe, because when I spoke to a Stoke fan about them a year or 2 ago, the feeling was that Emre Tezgel had this higher ceiling than Nathan Lowe, but Nathan Lowe was better suited to making an immediate impact in the Football League because of his physicality, because of the pace, and he was just sort of there was a feeling that his skill set was going to translate better. So what I'm wondering is that you're relying at the moment on Nathan Lowe to do the running for Jamil Matt, who's a little bit not going to do loads of it now at 34, as much as I'm sure he's a great professional. So I would worry a little bit about bringing in a slightly more languid forward, because you're not going to be able to play your pressing game at the same intensity without somebody like Nathan Lowe up there. So I would make sure that if you did lose Nathan Lowe, you replace him with somebody of a similar profile, as opposed to just going back to Stoke and having another one of their top talents.
To be honest, I was looking at this earlier, because that would be a risk. The other risk as well is Jamil Matt, and as far as the pressing, you probably wouldn't guess it with it being 35. But he's been working really hard up front and pressing really well.
Okay.
So the both of them really have been excellent. So the risk for me is if Jamil Matt got injured, at his age, he would take longer to get fit.
Well, and also, is there a feeling that can he do that consistently Saturday, Tuesday with the number of games that you'll have between now and the end of the season? You're going to need to have another option there. So,
I think definitely there's another option needed, but we do need to think about Josh Gordon. He's not going to get the goals because he's approaching fitness now. He's not going to get the goals, but he's very good aerially and very good at the press.
Okay.
So that's one option. Douglas James Taylor, who went to Drogheda in the League of Ireland, won the cup for them, or contributed to winning the cup, scored 15 in 15 for them.
Oof.
He's now back.
Okay.
He's now back. So he's going to be fighting for a place on the bench. So he's a good one we've got there. Got the experience of Uncle Albert and Danny Johnson, of course. And we still have Race Cleary with us. So that there are some good options in there. But I was looking at some potentials for next season. And if we get Freddie Draper back, I know he's getting the odd game. He's getting game time for Lincoln.
If you get promoted to League One, then maybe. I'm not sure that's a realistic one. I think Lincoln City think a lot of Freddie Draper, and he's in that kind of foot. They rotate their four strikers a lot, and they play two of them at any one time. So not sure.
Well, he's only got the 2 goals in 17 appearances this season for them. Got more yellow cards than goals, which is never a great stat for a striker.
At least he's getting stuck in.
But so as far as the front line, we have got options, but there's still a little bit of concern if that was disrupted.
Jack, I want to come to you because as a Fleetwood fan, you've got the best sort of idea of how to exploit any possible weaknesses in Walsall. Obviously, we'll have to give them a bit of a benefit of the doubt because it was very much an off day for a team that's that currently leads the table. But did you see any sort of what's the expression? A kind of a chink in the armour, if you like.
Well, I thought that we could get through the midfield a bit easy. Actually, ironically, I think it was our first goal when we moved it from back to front really quickly. I messaged Charlie Adam because of the goal and the pattern of play. And he actually said because of Ryan Stirk, he said that he can get dragged out of position a bit easily. So that's something Fleetwood picked up on, and that's something where maybe a team's building up on the right, and maybe they can have that sort of diagonal pass inside. A striker comes deep, or sort of the 10 picks it up in the pocket, and then they can anticipate the play from there. But I mean, on the night, Walsall got, I wouldn't say unlucky, but our goals were a bit sort of jammy. Kane Hughes got a brace. His header went off it was Reece Bennett's head actually went off Kane Hughes' shoulder, so he got the goal, and then. It was a penalty. I think it was Okagbu who brought down Ronan Coughlin in that sort of.
I think that was a fair penalty. That was a fair penalty. I think it was just poor timing at that point of the game. I think. Sorry, go on.
No, it was just a bit not sort of individual errors, but we could clearly see where we wanted to attack. Try and get the ball centrally first, and then try and go out wide. And I mean. When Ronan Coughlin's in sort of a wide area like that and at a tight angle, he sort of normally drags the defender out to him and then just tries to get past him, which obviously Okagbu fell into that trap and made the mistake. But yeah, I think for Walsall, because it's their only loss at home, it was a bit of an off night, and since that Walsall game, we've only won 1. So I think that's one of the weirdest results so far in League Two. Definitely.
It was a very weird result. On the night, it seemed like everything the Fleetwood hit went in, particularly the 6th goal. It was just a random shot and it just went right through the keeper unsighted.
Yeah.
But if you think the other end, Walsall had so many chances in that game. It could have been 6-6. And we were just slightly off target and everything knew it went in. And so it's quite an open game. Yeah, for the first one, Stirk had got sort of pulled a bit far forward, and they played the ball behind him, so he's the wrong side of the guy in the middle, and so he had a free run at the back 3 then.
Simon, I'm wondering if you should change your chant to "He's here, he's there, he's everywhere." Ryan Stirk, but sometimes keep your positional discipline, lad, to make sure that you fucking get to midfield. I don't know whether that quite has the same ring to it, but I'm wondering, you could workshop it.
To be honest, when he had a bit of sickness on Saturday and he went off, Charlie Lakin, when he's filled in at CDM, he was awesome.
Well, he played there for Birmingham City as a youngster. He played in a 2-man midfield under Gary Monk, where it was all about positional discipline and keeping the shape. So, yes, he can play this aggressive, more attacking 8 kind of role. And I think he does that really well, but he does have it in his locker as well to play that deeper role, which he's also done previously in his career.
In the first part of the season, a lot of people, and I must admit myself as well, was looking at Charlie Lakin and going like, he seems to be the weak link. He's sort of like not giving as much as everybody else. But as time's gone on, we've started to realise how much work he does. And really, he's been my man of the match the last 2 games. He's really stepped up, or I've just started noticing him, one of the two. Probably a bit of both. He's settled in more, and he's so him and Jamie Jellis in the midfield. Awesome, and then Sturkey behind them, obviously.
But what I'm wondering is, I'm wondering actually, do you think Liam Gordon is having to maybe be a bit more conservative in his wing-back role and possibly tuck in a little bit sometimes, just to give yourselves that bit more balance? Because I can imagine if you've got 2 wing-backs flying forward, you've got 2 number 8s pressing, you've got 2 up top, it all of a sudden leaves Ryan Sturck a little bit in no man's land, where you're quite easy to attack on. Like I can imagine if you're an opposing side, you press Ryan Sturck, you try and get turnovers, you attack quickly in those sorts of positions. Whereas I guess if in possession Liam Gordon comes inside, which he sometimes does anyway, to kind of curl a shot a little bit, that might be able to give you balance, and then you can still have Charlie Lakin maybe overloading the flank on the left, and you've got that bit more positional balance, I guess.
Yeah, I think the start of the season, Connor Barrett was sort of like a steam train with all the assists he was getting.
Yeah.
And people have found him out a little bit, and they've been doubling up on him. So he's not been flourishing as well of late, but Liam Gordon has. So I think maybe Connor Barrett's sort of holding off a little bit, and they're taking it turns, really. But yeah, Liam Gordon's confidence is rising. Still want him to get more assists, obviously, but the way he cuts inside, he's sort of ripping people apart at times. So everybody's contributing, and I think the reason Walsall are at the top of the table right now is the whole squad is together. Squad and fans alike are all together. Walsall concede a goal, and the fans aren't grumbling; they're sort of cheering and really pushing the team on.
Oh, that's brilliant!
It's that togetherness. It's that togetherness that's taking Walsall all the way, hopefully.
Well, it's great to be part of those seasons as a fan, I imagine, where the whole fan base is really behind the team. It's I'm sure that's a really special experience, Simon.
It's a nice change.
yeah, for sure. Do you share my feeling, Simon, that Walsall, as much as we've waxed lyrical about so many of these attacking players like Connor Barrett, like Nathan Lowe, like Jellis and Lakin, Sturck, do you feel like there is maybe a danger that Walsall can be got at with the way that you play?
I think Walsall do defend very, very well.
Right.
And as you see from the stats, we're one of the, not the best, but one of the best defences in the division, and one of the highest goal scorers in the division. So a lot of the games recently have been tight, and we're just nicking it by the odd goal. Bit of 1-0 to the Arsenal kind of territory.
Yeah.
I did as a funny addition. I don't know whether Jake's seen this. Walsall tried the Arsenal technique when they'll stay at the far post and then run through. It doesn't work like they're in League Two. They just get the ref just blows up for a foul the moment they push anybody, I think. But Walsall had tried that on a couple. It hadn't particularly worked. But I mean, it's interesting that they've tried it.
Yeah, certainly innovative. Jack, what do you think of Walsall's promotion chances then? Do you think they're going to be up there for the duration?
Yeah, but like Simon said, it depends at January, because, for Walsall, it's great, the top of the league, but then you've got, sort of journalists having rumours every sort of 5 days about, that Matt Sadler was in consideration for the Millwall Northampton job. There was the Jamie Jellis rumour, and then obviously the worry about Nathan Lowe going back, but then about Stoke striker options, Ennis and Tesgel aren't really top forward options for them. I think decent as backups, but no one's going to get a looking over Tom Cannon, and it seems like Leicester aren't going to recall him. So it seems like Nathan Lowe's chances at staying at Walsall are good, and it's that partnership they've made, Lowe and Matt, and Matt can bring it down, and Lowe will press for the whole game, and Matt has to set the example, and I think with him being captain and 35 years old, it's a good bit of experience and also a learning curve for Nathan Lowe to learn off.
Absolutely.
Someone like Jamil Matt, but I think Walsall in this division, obviously you got Chesterfield on the same amount of goals, 35, but sort of in that top 3 or top 5, they're the only sort of side that seems to put 3 or 4 past aside. Port Vale, Crewe and Wimbledon sort of, I think Port Vale and Crewe mainly, they only seem to get 1, maybe scrappy 1-0s, which are great, obviously, you grind the results out, but you feel like Walsall have more of that free-flowing nature to them, and they've got, like Sam said, a real balance in that squad that they don't have to rely sometimes on Nathan Lowe to get the goals. They've got Jellis and Lakin in midfield. They've got 2 very good wing-backs, so I think they have got a good chance.
Well. Yeah.
I think, and obviously when you've got a creative centre-half like Taylor Allen who can step into midfield sometimes, then, you've got creativity everywhere.
He played left wing. He played left wing back on Tuesday against Reading.
Yeah, so he can show his flexibility, maybe if Gordon gets injured, you've got Taylor Allen to step up there. But I think Walsall will stay in and around that promotion mix, because at the moment, there's no reason why they shouldn't be.
I think it's the consistency, isn't it? I think it's a 5-0 doesn't win you the league. It's the consistency. And I think Walsall, the Fleetwood game apart, have been consistent.
Yeah.
We lost at MK Dons. That was a really annoying game. Walsall playing the press, but every time they put a challenge in, the ref blew for a foul. So it so that Walsall then started holding back and letting them pass it round. But that was only a 1-0. So that was sort of, we were still in it, sort of going into the last couple of minutes sort of thing.
And also your other loss is 1-0 too against Tranmere. So it's fine margins when you've lost, and then obviously a one-off game like Fleetwood, you've lost 6-2. But since then,
with the Tranmere game, they got the goal, and then they just shut up shop, and we couldn't get through.
Yeah, vintage Tranmere really that this season under Nigel Adkins. But since the Fleetwood game, you're unbeaten in the league. You lost 4-0 against Charlton in the FA Cup, but like I said about the togetherness, I looked at the comments. No one's having a go at the team. No one's having a go at the manager. You've respected that you're playing against a higher opposition, and you're going to go again in the league. And then you beat Notts County 3-2 on the Tuesday. Then you beat Port Vale. So, it's that togetherness that's going to drive you through the season, which I think, as Gab said, when you've got a full team and a fan base together, and we lose together and we also win together, it's really special, and it can create special things.
Yeah, I think what Gab sort of touched on with the speculation, and I think you mentioned it as well, the speculation around Matt Sadler. I think as a manager, in a lot of respects, he hasn't achieved anything yet. So I think he's got speculation because he's top of the league, but he hasn't got a promotion on his CV yet. So I don't think I can't imagine a scenario where Matt Sadler would want to leave without getting that promotion on his CV.
I agree. It feels I understand the instinct that some managers might have for, you don't know when you're going to get these opportunities, because management is such a sort of an unpredictable industry where you could be out of a job, you could be, flavour of the month 1 minute and out of the job the next, because that's how management is, and sometimes you do have to grab those opportunities. But I also think that, if you're on the cusp of achieving something, you want to kind of tick that off on the CV before you jump on. I think it's one thing, if we're talking about halfway through a season in League One, with Matt Sadler having already taken Walsall up, or the year after having already kept them up, then it might be, fair play, good luck, move on to the next thing, because there's never an ideal time. But I think, when he's just on the cusp of achieving something, you want to stick around for that and get that on your CV.
Yeah, of course, Dean Smith did that and skipped, but that was to move to Brentford. I can't see anybody.
And also, Simon, it's
That's
hard for us, as much as to sort of caveat what I said, it's hard to argue with Dean Smith's decision because he's gone on to have a great career for himself,
Yeah.
winning promotion from the Championship, managing in the Premier League. Like, he's given himself a great career through making that decision.
Yeah. And I think it's similar. It's similar for the likes of Nathan Lowe as well. He's wants to get a promotion on his CV as well. Everybody does. So the fact that Walsall are up there, he'd want to stay.
Yeah.
Jamie Jellis, obviously, it's a great thing to be linked with different teams, and that comes because the team's doing well, obviously. But I spoke to Jamie Jellis's dad earlier in the season.
Love speaking to people's fathers and parents.
Yeah, I'll get around.
You're a very social person, Simon.
I try to be. He was on the fan reaction. He was on my fan reaction at I forget where the ground was. Anyway, he said Jamie was just happy to be getting a start and that sort of stuff. So if you imagine, it's his first season as a full-time professional.
Still gelling with the team.
Jellis is gelling. Yeah, that's it. And the thing is, it's because of the team nature and everybody in it together. I suppose an agent would, and Walsall's level, that not many of them have got sort of big high-flying agents. They're not going to be pulled away for the wages when it's his first season. He's got a chance of getting promotion on his CV. Why would he want to be moving?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If Walsall were eighth and hoping to gain the playoffs, and then somebody from the League One's coming in for him, then he's much more likely to go. But when you're top of the league, having a great time, everybody all having fun together as a squad, like, you don't want to leave that.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's a really exciting season for Walsall. I think you're a bit overdue it, to be honest, Simon, because
we've had a bit of a rough time.
I know, since the playoff season in 2015-16,
yeah.
There's not been an awful lot to shout about. So I'm delighted that Walsall fans really have a team to be proud of and get behind. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the season, Simon. I'm sure we'll catch up between now and then. Yeah, up the Saddlers.
Champion, join the pain.
Brilliant. Cheers, Simon.
Yeah.
So, Jack, who are the other contenders for you then that you're really impressed with in terms of automatic promotion credentials?
Definitely Port Vale, because obviously the quality of the squad. I think something that may be holding the back a bit, they're chopping and changing the starting 11 a lot, but it's because of the depth that they have and sort of the players that they can bring in that are good enough, players at League 2 level. It's obviously good to have a great squad at this level, but I think Darren Moore maybe needs to manage it a bit better to maybe just get a set 11 that maybe he can go on a run with. And I think that was the case when obviously they didn't have the best first 4 games, but then they found something like, they dropped Payton and then they put Stockley back in the 11.
Well, it was the Accrington game, Jack, wasn't it? Where they were 2-0 down in going into injury time, I think, and they had played absolutely appallingly at the Crown. And then they all of a sudden scored 2 goals in injury time. And that seemed to be the catalyst for them to put together this crazy winning run, and that's put them right in contention. So it's funny how quickly seasons can change, and it shows that there's going to be a lot of twists and turns in this promotion race between now and the end. Yeah,
and another team I like is Crewe. I didn't think that Crewe would be up there, to be honest.
No, I didn't.
At the start of the season, because I thought that. Well, obviously the recruitment stayed the same, and then it's good that they got Bogle and Hemmings to sort of experience alongside Dimitri to sort of get them young players through the rough patches and sort of lift them up after obviously playoff final defeat, go again next season. But Lee Bell's stuck to his sort of principles. He's still got a young squad, and it was when they played Fleetwood. Again, Fleetwood should have got more than probably should have got a draw or at least something out of the game. But I think they had an average squad age of 21, and they defended for them lives, and that was actually without Mickey Dimitriou in the back line. So even without that experience, they've got Knight, LaBelle, and also Connolly, who can also play without Dimitriou, and also Zach Williams, and still perform at a good level. But they're also getting a lot out of Ryan Cooney, especially more than what they got out of last season. Obviously, he's on set pieces, but his delivery from the right hand side and the way he can bomb forward, I really like him. And he's also got that dark art side to him that obviously fans of clubs they love. And Max Conway on loan from Bolton, I doubt he's going to get recalled either. And even when Bogle and Hemmings haven't been starting, I thought Charlotte Tracy's done a magnificent job.
Yeah, Charlotte Tracy's been great. I think what Crewe have been really good at this season is probably being on the counter-attack, where I think they did it at Grimsby as well, even without Charlotte Tracy, where they had this really solid defensive setup where a little bit uncrew-like, you might say, in terms of just very rigid defensively and very difficult to penetrate. But then also they can cut teams open with bits of individual quality, like Charlotte Tracy with his pace has done it at times this season. I think on Saturday you saw Jack Lancaster really come into his own with the real flair that he brought. And then I'm quite liking at the moment that relationship down the left-hand side between Maciej Holacek and Max Conway. I think that can be the route to some chances. And obviously Joel Taberner is starting to come into it as well. And I think what you got with Zach Williams, Joel Taberner and Maciej Holacek, three players of the next sort of golden generation, if you like. They're starting to get closer towards the peak that the previous golden generation got to in around 2019, where they're just coming into that age bracket where you're starting to recognise, there's some really good players there. So that's what I'm really excited about with Crewe in terms of that young talent that they continue to develop, because they've got a fantastic academy. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's only us and Crewe who are actually Category 2 in League 2. So, it shows how good both academies are. And obviously Crewe utilise it well. And, Lancaster, I don't think he played much in the first half of the season, or he maybe got injured, I think it was October to November time. But then I thought, when he came on against Port Vale, I thought he was my man of the match, really, and he got the equaliser. And then ever since then, goal against Carlisle, assist against Bradford, goal and assist against Grimsby. So when you've got them players coming back from injury, you've got Charlotte Tracy who's been running the show, and then obviously Tracy and Lancaster play together. Lancaster wants to really be alongside Tracy, and at the end of the day, you're winning there and also scoring there with a front two of Lancaster and Tracy or someone else without a recognised number 9. It's great to see.
Jack, I would still probably go with Kane Hemmings over Omar Bogle as I send forward, because I think Hemmings has maybe a slightly better work rate, and I think he facilitates the rest of the team better, whereas I think Omar Bogle's probably a better finisher, but he's the one who probably needs a bit of love and an arm around the shoulder and that kind of thing. But they've got some decent options there. I suppose the question is, should we be talking about Crewe as a team that's really going to last the course and has those automatic promotion credentials over a side like MK Dons, who have this incredible depth, or over a side like Doncaster, for instance?
Yeah, that's the thing, especially with Gillingham at the start. We're thinking, Gillingham, very good defensively, nicked games 1-0, 2-0, but then all of a sudden it just collapsed. And Crewe were a side like that. They'll probably score more than Gillingham, but they're the same resolute defensively side. And because obviously MK now, they're kicking on. Lindsay has brought new ideas, fresh ideas, still the same possession-based style, but Aston Williamson...
Autos for you, MK Dons?
Yeah, I think so. I expected MK to really kick on under Lindsay, and they've had the struggles a bit. They got beat by Gillingham, got beat by Port Vale, but I think also the fans are buying into it more because Williamson, when you listen to Williamson's interviews, it's a bit dry, it's a bit bland. You don't really get much out of him. It's just expected goals and all that. Scott Lindsay will say it how it is, and I feel like the fans really like that character and manager. And Scott Lindsay, he's obviously, I think, not a way better, but definitely a better manager than Williamson. I think he has more ideas to him. And then he's inherited a side that fits his style. I thought Aaron Nemain was a brilliant signing for MK at right wing back. And then he's also got two ex-colleagues of Lawrence Maguire and Liam Kelly.
I don't know if it's that Lindsay has more ideas to him than Mike Williamson. I think it's possibly more that he gets that balance between. Some coaches have this kind of methodology where you've got to be it's very regimented, sort of super process driven, possession based coaches where players have got to stay in certain zones and it's really coordinated right to the last detail. And I think Mike Williamson is a bit like that.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think the downside to that, and I think we've seen that in some of the performances this season, is that when it's so rigid and so regimented in terms of how they build the play, it can almost become a little bit static and there's not much movement or spontaneity or unpredictability. And what I think Scott Lindsay does brilliantly, and I think this is one of the hardest things for being a process-driven coach with certain sort of progressive ideas, is getting that balance between having clear patterns of play and clear, players knowing their roles and responsibilities, but also giving them that little bit of freedom of expression. And I think Scott Lindsay, hits the nail on the head for me.
Yeah, and I think when I watched MK Dons and watching the highlights, every time they got on the attack in wide areas, you knew what they were going to do. It was sort of the wing back going inside and then sort of 3 or 2 just attacking it in the box for the cutback. That's sort of what MK Dons always did. And I think also, if there's limited movement from maybe Gilby or Werner in the 10s, if you get 2 aggressive outside centre-backs man marking them, I think it can cause them problems. I did an analysis piece on Port Vale and MK Dons, and Port Vale did that because he had Jesse Deborah, who I think is one of the best aggressive centre-halves in the league for stepping up.
I agree, but I think that can be a weakness with Jesse Deborah as well, because I think he can vacate his position. I think if he does it without the middle centre-half coming across, then that can actually leave a bit of a gap between the middle centre-half and the wing-back. So I think it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and also I think with MK that I'm seeing a lot more from Alex Gilby, sort of playing as really a second striker. We know that he got obviously 14 goals last season and he got 10 assists, but it's sort of that playmaking that he's giving up just to be in and around, the 6-yard box.
Do you think he's underrated technically, Alex Gilby?
Yes, because I don't think sometimes he gets into the technical side too much, because obviously you've got Liam Kelly who likes to drop deep and obviously dictate the game. And then sort of Alex Gilby's used just as really in the penalty area, not sort of a poacher, but, he's not sort of one who'll drop deep and link the play. So, yeah, I think in that regard he is. But with the quality side that MK have, I think, they will be up there. But one thing I think they need to get in the transfer window is a solid number 6, because Jay Williams for Crawley, I thought he was sort of a destructor, and that's not what MK Dons have this season. And sometimes it showed in the goals he conceded. Liam Kelly, he won't do the dirty work because he's only a small lad, and and I just think alongside maybe Liam Kelly. You need sort of someone who'll sit, break up the play, but also has obviously that technical quality that's required at MK Dons. And obviously at League 2 level, it's going to be hard to ask. But MK Dons, they can have the pulling power to get these, sort of good quality plays in League 2 down. to obviously play at this level of football.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the argument would. I mean, I think MK Dons do have lots of midfielders, which might be one of the reasons why they wouldn't necessarily invest, because you've already got. Or, I mean, as it is at the moment, you've got Tom Carroll, who's played in the top 2 divisions of English football. You've got Kane Thompson-Summers, who I've actually been really impressed with as a ball carrier and as a technical player in terms of the passes that he can find. There may be others in the squad there. And I think they probably would argue that you don't. The defenders are so aggressive that you don't necessarily need someone who's going to break up play in midfield. That's what I think that would be the theory. Whether that's necessarily true and whether that could cost them, I don't know. But I think that would be the idea that they'll probably run with, because Luke Offord, for instance, is very good at breaking into midfield. He did it at Crewe a lot, where in game he would almost come into midfield, and because he's so aggressive and goes all after things. I think Lawrence Maguire is similar in that aerially he goes straight in for things. So yeah, maybe MK Dons feel like they're sort of a ball winning component to the outside centre backs that they have, and maybe that mitigates the need for a sort of more destructive midfielder.
Yeah, and I think also it was a smart sign to get Scott Hogan.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Because you've got, obviously Joe Pritchard has been playing wing back too. Scott Lindsay likes to get the most out of the wing backs. So Kellen Gordon and also Cerula last season, they got decent level of output. I think 20 goal contributions between them both, something like that.
Yeah.
And when you've got quality of Aaron Nemain, he got a bucket load of assists last season, or the season before for Notts County, but also goals, and he's quality with the cutbacks. And when you've got sort of a poacher like Scott Hogan, but also I think it might have been against Swindon. He's not just a poacher, Scott Hogan. He can actually make the runs in behind, and then you have sort of Alex Gilby who can make them
third man runs.
To the position that obviously he's created with that channel run, and then sort of cut it back for Gilby, who's obviously in the penalty area, and especially when MK can go long, it is kind of hard, for the opposition midfielders to lose track of Gilby, and then you've got a free man in the box, and it's a great opportunity to score.
Yeah, he's got a great way of sort of snuffing out chances, hasn't he, Alex Gilby? So really got to admire that. So in terms of another promotion candidate we've not touched on yet is Doncaster Rovers. They've possibly dropped more points than they might have liked of late. Doncaster Rovers, just one win in 6 for them, and yet they're still only 1 point off the automatic spots, which shows just how tight it is, and how sort of everyone's taking points off one another. Do Doncaster get into the top 3 for you, do you think?
It's hard, because I think there's certain games where they can start at certain profiles, like Jordan Gibson and Luke Molyneux, when they like to play really fast from the back. I think it's against Grimsby. They tried to overload the build-up and then had Sharp, Gibson and Molyneux on the last line. But when they got the ball into either Molyneux or Gibson, they could turn and then make that pass into the opposite winger, who could stretch the pitch in behind. And then against Fleetwood, I think it worked really well with having Kyle Hurst at the 10 and then starting a front 2 with Billy Sharp and also Joe Ironside, because Joe Ironside won everything in the air. It was great with his flick-ons. He used his body well. And then I thought Hurst off the ball movement and aggressive runs into the box as well thought out. And then obviously Billy Sharp's got the really good movement, because he's been a top striker for ages. Billy Sharp is Billy Sharp at the end of the day. So I think Luke Molyneux, I suppose, to a Doncaster fan, he hasn't necessarily been bad. It's just because everyone was overwhelmed at the output at the start of the season, and obviously the high standard he set. He's not been obviously getting within the goal contribution sort of, and it's weird because I think this season in particular, instead of going for the 4-2-3-1, Grant McCann's now maybe trying to mix between that and also a back three. But also sometimes when they drop into a back three, maybe Owen Bailey goes into the centre. I think sometimes the midfield can become non-existent. Only George Broadbent, and then the passing angles can't really be well accessed. And then I think sort of the a bit slow in build up when they go to that back three.
Do you know what, Jack? It's a really interesting point that you raised there. I think I look at Doncaster in the second half of last season when they put that incredible run together. I felt like they were a really good footballing side because of Matty Craig. I thought he was really influential. Whereas I think if I look at Doncaster at their best this season, I would say it's pretty much just transitional attacks with Carl Hurst, Jordan Gibson, and Luke Molyneux. Normally, two of those three, and Billy Sharp tends to start up top. But I also feel like they're going to need to try and find a way of opening up teams in different ways. And I think maybe the lack of continuity in midfield hasn't helped them. Maybe they've not quite been able, despite having lots of midfielders, a bit like MK Dons, I suppose. They've not really been able to find that number one, like the Matty Craig, who can really control the tempo of the game and really get their attacks moving. I think they've got lots of strong runners and they've got lots of athletes in that side, but maybe they're missing a little bit of control to try and open teams up in different ways. So I think if I'm holding them to really high standards for the second half of the season, I think that's the gear that I'd like to see them try and find.
Yeah, because I thought last season, sometimes they can blow teams away, but they have that right balance. And last season they didn't dictate the game as much. Obviously, you had the technical player of Matty Craig who could be sort of the deep receiver, but then you could have Owen Bailey, Jamie Sterry, and also Luke Molyneux on the right, creating overloads. Obviously, you had Adelkin, who was
he was brilliant. I think they miss Adelkin a little bit actually because he was just rampant.
Yeah, and also I think Jordan Gibson, you want him out wide taking his man on one-on-one, where Adelkin could sort of have that. Obviously, his starting position would be on the left wing, but he could take up any position on the pitch. He could go from left wing into the 10, into the pockets, and then sort of create something from there. And they're definitely better at the fluid best, and they struggled a lot against low blocks, against Harrogate.
Bromley would definitely be one. Yeah.
Bromley. And I'm not saying, they don't have technical players because, they've got sort of a few in there. But I think, like you say, it's more the running power, which I think is Doncaster's USP, to just go and create chances. And even if they're trying to play out from the back, bait the opposition's press, go into Luke Molyneux, and then you've got super aggressive runners who can stretch the pitch in behind, and that's definitely where I think they're at the best. Because also Billy Sharp can occasionally drop deep and sort of link the play. And then if you start Joe Ironside, he can pin his defender and then flick one on for either Jordan Gibson or Luke Molyneux to go in behind, which either side Ironside's on. And I think because McCann's gone a different way about it this season, and at the at the end of last season, he demanded, that we're going to win the title. I think he might have gone away from his principles and tried to sort of create a new way of going about things, which at this point in time, it's a bit slow for Doncaster, and I think they need to be much quicker.
Yeah, certainly got another gear that they'll want to find, but they're also, to give them some credit, they're also in a very competitive position, and they're certainly not losing many games. So I'm sure that they'll find that extra gear. I want to talk about AFC Wimbledon because they've won 10 games so far this season in 19. They've also got a game in hand on Port Vale. So technically, if they won that game, they would actually go above Port Vale on goal difference. So important not to underestimate them. And I suppose Matty Stevens has been the main man for the Dons.
Yeah, and it's important that he's regained his form, because we know what Matty Stevens can do. We're 19 games in, and it's already his best season since that Forest Green promotion winning campaign, where I think he scored 26 goals. So when you and I think also you've got that right balance up top. You've got Bugle, who I really like. he doesn't.
I love Omar Beagle.
He doesn't quite get the goals and assists. He's only got 3 and 2 this season, but
That's
I
what
think it's
stopped him from getting the moves higher up. Is that and possibly age and perception and stuff like that. But like, I think recruitment for clubs higher up have just completely missed. I imagine how good technically he is, because he's a very creative footballer despite his physical profile, which is another advantage.
Yeah, definitely. He creates a lot of chances, and when he can have that physical sort of advantage over defenders, but then when he can bring it down and have that sort of close control, he can easily set Matty Stevens away in behind, because Matty Stevens is a willing runner in the channels. Or
so is Josh Kelly.
Yeah, so I think they've got the right balance when they start either Stevens or Kelly next to Bugle. I think it's great because obviously both of them can latch on to sort of the knockdowns that Bugle creates, and a lot of their play comes from the wing backs. I think they've got 2 wing backs that aren't wing backs. For me, wingers. If a new manager came in and played a 4 at the back, I'm not saying they'd be better, but I think it benefited more with. Because I think it would sort of with any player, because Fleetwood have Phoenix passing, we playing wing back, but as soon as Phoenix goes into a left winger position, you get more out of him, because you're not sort of obviously sort of like in a 4-4-2 or something, you need to track back. But then obviously in a 5-back where you're in that defence, it's a must that you've got to track back. And I think with Neufville and Tilly, the great chance creators and balls in the box that Wimbledon specialise in. But then you've got Alistair Smith, who I really like in midfield. And I think I've not been too disappointed with Callum Maycock either when he's made the step up from National League. He's contributed to a few goals. He's a willing runner. And I think Wimbledon, another team that has sort of the right balance, but they have got a few mistakes in them, and I don't like to pinpoint players, but Owen Goodman, he's sort of one that can sort of let them down a bit. Against Barrow they could have got a clean sheet, but he made an absolute howler. It's sort of a keeper like that, where last season they had Alex Bass, 16 clean sheets. If they had someone like Alex, obviously, Goodman's got 9 clean sheets already, which is magnificent. But, when that defence is maybe broken down, you'd maybe sort of obviously want that Alex Bass type keeper back instead of Goodman, because you can get the odd mistake.
I'm also kind of wondering whether... I mean, John Joe O'Toole has been great for a free agent signing that they made in sort of after the transfer window. And I can see how a player of his quality, who's used to playing higher up earlier in his career, has brought a certain level of quality and ball playing nice to that defence. But there's also part of me that's wondering, you put crosses into the box, is John Joe O'Toole going to head them away, and can they get away with just having Ryan Johnson as that sort of physical aerial presence? I suppose they'll argue that for set pieces they can have Omar Bugle back for that. But whether John Joe O'Toole can be that defensive linchpin as well as getting attacks going from the sort of sweeper position, that would I'd be curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and like you said about the sort of set pieces when Bugle can go back, I think, and in my opinion, I think Joe Pigott could be going back to Leyton Orient with not enough game time for a lone player. But
I would actually get someone else in. I don't think Pigott really fits in for Wimbledon so much.
No, but when we went to Wimbledon, I thought Pigott was the best player on the pitch, to be honest.
Oh, really?
And it's because of his box defending. And for me, as a striker, I thought Jayden Stockley went really under the radar at Fleetwood, because sort of the dirty work that he did in both boxes was the aerial presence.
Pigott's a completely different profile as centre forward to Jayden Stockley, despite being of a similar height, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. But for what stood out of Pigott for me was his sort of box defending, and then just everything Pigott won. Maybe it's a lack of physicality with the Fleetwood defence, I don't know, but he just stood out for me as one. And then I
Yeah,
thought,
it's interesting you say that, Jack, because Pigott's reputation has been that, or despite his height, he maybe struggles with winning aerial duels, and that's why Omar Boudjil, I think he's actually a very good footballer, like if you give the ball to his feet. I think Danny Cowley has spoken about that. He's got a lovely way with the ball. But I'm also sort of, I'm not sure whether he can do that sort of target man role, whereas I think Omar Boudjil, I think Omar Boudjil's are kind of on a similar level as a footballer to Joe Pigott, maybe slightly off, but not by much. But I think he's much better in that target man role than Pigott is. So for me, Omar Boudjil is a net upgrade on Joe Pigott. And I think Pigott's going to have to maybe go to an ambitious National League club to kind of, rejig his career.
Yeah, and it's sometimes the case with a few strikers we've seen at this level. Macaulay Bonne, he's gone to Southend now, I think.
Yeah.
He didn't get going in the EFL, really. Then he had to make that drop down. And I mean, I like Pigott. And obviously, if he goes down to National League, maybe, on paper, looking at his output the past few seasons since his 2021 Wimbledon season, you think, that's probably the best move for him. But I think Wimbledon, they have the right balance. Obviously, they have a target man, they have a willing runner in behind, they have good chance creation from the wide areas. And is Jake Reeves injured currently?
Yes, he's injured. So that's one of the things where they're a little bit concerned about lack of creativity from midfield, possibly. But they have brought in Romain Sawyers as a free agent.
Yeah.
And I think Sawyers is going to definitely bring some creativity, but I think Sawyers would have to play alongside somebody like Ali Smith, who's going to bring that physicality and athleticism, because I think a midfield of Sam Hutchinson, who I think might be another free agent signing they've brought in, and Sawyers, you're not going to have much mobility there in a two-man midfield. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic, I imagine, for Johnny Jackson. So I think it's going to be like Smith or Maycock and Hutchinson or Sawyers, despite Hutchinson being much more defensive-minded player than Sawyers is.
Yeah, because when we play Wimbledon, I thought they were really balanced because they had, especially in the midfield, they had Reeves who would just obviously distribute the ball and dictate tempo. Then you had Miles Hippolyte and Ali Smith, two sort of athletic figures for me, who could also roam into wide areas and create them overloads, which I thought they were really impressive in doing. And like I say, with Sam Hutchinson maybe in the midfield, he's not going to sort of bring that for me. And then with Romain Sawyers, he's going to bring that technical quality. But like I say, the mobility issue is a bit there.
Mayor Mark has said for a Cheltenham Town fan, Wimbledon have the balance of pace and physicality that does so well at this level, and they certainly have got some quick players in there like Josh Nerfville, and they've got some physical operators like Ryan Johnson, haven't they? So I think Wimbledon are a side where they've got a very high floor. They've got a relatively low ceiling combined with some of the teams around them, but I think that's going to get them into the top 7. They might not quite have a high enough floor for the top 3. We'll see. But maybe, I think like Mark mentioned earlier, if Walsall and Wimbledon are the two who sneak in, if anyone slips up. I don't think Walsall are going to be in sneaking in territory because I think they look very strong.
Yeah.
But Wimbledon could be an outsider. So then, who would be your top 3 then, Jack? If I had to push you for an answer.
Are we going in order?
Yeah, go on then.
I think from this position, I think Port Vale will win the league. Walsall second, MK Dons third.
It's a great question because I am So before this podcast, I would have gone with Northampton. No, not Northampton. They're not even in League 2, are they? I would have. I would have gone with Doncaster, but I'm kind of talking to you about it. I wonder if I've almost took myself out of. I'm going to go with them based on the idea that they're going to bring in players in January that are going to help them. And I think the right 2 or 3 players will just get Doncaster in there. So it's kind of a little bit of a conditional pick that. I still like Notts County, but I think they've dropped a lot of points in the last few weeks. That's going to make it hard for them to get top 3. So I think it might be top 7 for them. I would probably go MK Dons. So MK Dons, Doncaster, and Walsall would probably be my 3. Well, there you go. That just about wraps it up. Jack, thanks so much for your insight this evening. Your insight on League Two is amazing. So it's so great to get your thoughts on it from an outside perspective. And so I really appreciate your time. And keep up what you're doing, mate, because you do some great stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks to Simon from Walsall Fan TV. Thanks to all of you for watching this evening. This has been the EFL Debate League 2 podcast. We'll see you again next week. Actually, next week is Christmas Day, so it'll be some other time. I won't be recording on Christmas Day. I like League 2, but not that much.